You're already overpaid for what you do here, Natasha. I'm sitting in his office, holding a printed email with salary comparisons I spent 3 hours researching. My hands are shaking because I hate asking for things. I hate confrontation. But I'd finally worked up the courage to ask for $12,000 more a year. $12,000. That's $1,000 a month. That's groceries and my student loan payment. And Darren Kowalski, my boss of 4 years, is leaning back in his ergonomic chair that costs more than I make in 2 weeks, actually laughing. Not a polite chuckle. A full laugh, like I just told him the funniest joke he's heard all year. I mean, seriously, where did you get these numbers? Indeed? Those salary websites are completely unrealistic. You're a data analyst, Nat. You're not running the department. The thing is, I kind of am running the department, but I'll get to that. I'm Natasha Chen. I'm 29, and I've been slowly dying inside at Brightwater Analytics for 4 years. It's a mid-size consulting firm that helps companies make sense of their data, and I'm good at my job. Really good. The kind of good where people email me directly instead of going through proper channels because they know I'll actually solve their problems. Before I go deep into this whole mess, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know where you're watching from in the comments, because I need to know I'm not alone in this. I need to know other people have felt this small, this dismissed, this absolutely done with being treated like they're disposable. And honestly, I need the validation right now. So there I am, watching my boss laugh at me, and something breaks inside my chest. Not dramatically, just this quiet snap, like a rubber band that's been stretched too long. The market rate for someone with my experience and skills is between $78,000 and $85,000. I say, reading directly from my printout because my brain has stopped working properly. I'm making 62. Market rate, he repeats, like I said something in a foreign language. Natasha, you have to understand, we're not Google. We're not some tech startup throwing money around. We're a family business. Family business. I want to throw something. Brightwater Analytics was started by his uncle in 1987. And yes, half the management team shares DNA, but we're not exactly a mom-and-pop shop. We've got 43 employees and clients like Marriott International and the state of Maryland. I understand that, I say, but I haven't had a real raise in 3 years. Cost of living adjustments don't count. You got promoted to senior analyst 18 months ago, with a 2% increase. That's still an increase. I can feel my face getting hot. Darren, I trained the last 3 people you hired. I cover for James when he's out, which is basically every Friday. I rebuilt the entire client reporting system when it crashed in February. You did your job. He's not laughing anymore, but his voice has this edge that makes me want to disappear into the floor. Look, I get it. Everyone wants more money. But you're 29 years old. You live alone in a 1-bedroom apartment. It's not like you're supporting a family. And there it is, the thing that makes me want to scream. Because what does my personal life have to do with the value of my work? What does being single and childless have to do with whether I deserve to be paid fairly? That's not really relevant to my performance or the market value of... It's completely relevant. Sarah Morrison has 3 kids and a mortgage. James Peterson is getting married next year. They have real expenses. Sarah Morrison, who I've covered for during 2 maternity leaves and who still CCs me on emails to clients because she doesn't understand pivot tables. James Peterson, who takes 2-hour lunches and calls me at 9 p.m. because he's finally looking at the reports that were due that morning. I should leave. I should stand up, thank him for his time, and walk out of his office with whatever dignity I have left. Instead, I just sit there like an idiot, staring at my printed salary research, feeling my face burn with embarrassment. Look, Nat, you're doing fine. You're reliable, you're smart, and we appreciate you. But asking for a 19% raise? That's just not realistic. Maybe we can revisit this next year. Next year. Always next year. I finally stand up and my legs feel shaky. Okay, thanks for your time. Don't look so defeated, he says, and I swear to God he actually smiles. You're young. You've got plenty of time to work your way up. I walk back to my desk in this weird fog. My cubicle is in the back corner of the office. next to the printer that jams every third job and across from the break room where everyone can see my computer screen. I've been in the same spot for 4 years, watching new hires get offices while I organize their training materials. Jennifer from HR waves at me as I sit down, and she has this sympathetic look that makes me wonder if everyone knew how this meeting was going to go except me. Like maybe they've been taking bets on how long it would take Darren to crush whatever was left of my professional self-worth. I try to focus on the Morrison account analysis that's due tomorrow, but I keep replaying the conversation. "You're already overpaid." The casual way he said it, like it was obvious, like I was stupid for not knowing my place. My phone buzzes with a text from my sister. "How did it go?" I don't answer. The thing about working somewhere for 4 years is that you start to believe their version of your worth. Slowly, without noticing, you begin thinking maybe you really aren't that valuable. Maybe you're lucky to have this job. Maybe asking for more is greedy. But that night, I go home to my overpriced one-bedroom apartment that apparently disqualifies me from financial growth. And I do something I should have done years ago. I update my LinkedIn profile. I don't do it out of spite. I'm not plotting some elaborate revenge. I'm just tired. Tired of being grateful for scraps. Tired of watching less qualified people get promoted around me. Tired of feeling guilty for wanting more. It takes me 3 hours to update everything. My work history, my skills, my accomplishments. Seeing it all laid out like that, I realize I've been underselling myself for so long that I'd started to believe my own discount pricing. I've single-handedly managed client relationships worth over $2 million. I built the data visualization dashboard that landed us the Whitfield Hospital contract. I've trained 6 people who now make more money than me. I speak Python, SQL, R, and Tableau fluently. I have a master's degree in statistics from Johns Hopkins. On paper, I look pretty damn good. I set my profile to open to work and go to bed. The next morning, I have 11 LinkedIn messages waiting for me. 11. I'm sitting at my desk, drinking terrible office coffee and pretending to review the Morrison reports. But really I'm reading message after message from recruiters and hiring managers who apparently think my skills are worth something. "Hi Natasha, I came across your profile and would love to discuss an opportunity at Meridian Health. Your experience with healthcare analytics caught my attention. We're looking for a senior data scientist and your background is exactly what we need." Senior data scientist, not analyst, scientist. I'm trying to process this when Darren walks by my desk. "Morning, Nat. You feeling better about things?" "Yeah," I lie. "Much better." "Good, that's what I like to hear. Oh, and can you review the Peterson presentation before the 2 o'clock? He's feeling nervous about the data sections." Of course he is. I spend my lunch break taking a recruiting call in my car. The woman on the phone is named Diana Vasquez, and she's calling from Coastline Medical Systems. They need someone to lead their analytics team for a major software implementation project. The position is remote flexible, she's saying, and the salary range is between $120 and $150 depending on experience. $120,000. I'm quiet for so long that Diana asks if I'm still there. "Sorry, yes, I'm here. That salary range is for the position I'd be applying for?" "Well, looking at your background, I'd probably slot you somewhere in the middle of that range. Maybe $130 to start, with performance reviews every 6 months. $130,000, more than double what I'm making now. The thing is," Diana continues, "we need someone who can start relatively soon. This is a pretty urgent placement. Would you be available for a video interview this week?" I schedule it for Thursday at lunch. Then I schedule another one for Friday. By the end of the week, I'm juggling phone calls and video interviews like I'm running some kind of covert operation. I'm taking calls in my car, in coffee shops, in the bathroom at work when I can't get away. It's exhausting and exhilarating and terrifying all at once. Because here's what I'm learning. I'm not overpaid. I'm not even fairly paid. I'm criminally underpaid. Every single recruiter who calls me quotes a salary range that starts above what I'm making now. Most of them are offering $40,000 to $50,000 more. Some are offering more than that. The Coastline interview goes well. Really well. Well enough that Diana calls me back 2 hours later to schedule a second round with the department director. Friday afternoon, I'm pretending to work on quarterly reports when my phone rings. It's a number I don't recognize, but I've been getting a lot of recruiter calls, so I step outside to take it. Natasha? This is Kevin Waldrop from Hartfeld Associates. Hartfeld Associates. I applied for a position there on Wednesday night, but honestly, I didn't think they'd call. They're huge. Like international consulting firm huge. Like offices in 12 countries huge. Hi, Kevin. Thanks for calling. I'll cut right to the chase. We're looking for someone to lead data strategy for our East Coast healthcare clients. It's a director-level position, fully remote but with quarterly travel. I've reviewed your portfolio, and frankly, you're exactly what we're looking for. Director level. I've never been a director of anything. The base salary is $240 plus performance bonuses that typically run another 15 to 20%. Full benefits, stock options, the works. Would you be interested in learning more? $240,000. I'm standing outside my office building, watching people walk by living their normal lives, and this man is telling me I could make more money than I ever thought possible. Yes, I manage. I'd definitely like to learn more. Fantastic. I know this is quick, but any chance you could do a video call Monday morning? I've got the hiring manager available at 10 a.m. Eastern. I schedule the call. I go back inside feeling like I'm walking through a movie about someone else's life. This doesn't happen to people like me. People like me stay in jobs where they're undervalued and should be grateful for cost of living adjustments. But apparently, that's not true. The Hartfeld interview is on Monday. The Coastline second round interview is Tuesday. I have 3 other interviews scheduled for next week. And you know what the really crazy part is? I'm good at this. I'm good at interviews when I'm not desperate, when I'm not begging for scraps. When I know my worth, I can talk about my work with confidence. I can list my accomplishments without apologizing for taking up space. Wednesday of the following week, Diana from Coastline calls with an offer. $135,000, full remote, 4 weeks vacation, health insurance that doesn't have a $3,000 deductible. I'm in my car again, parked outside a Starbucks because I can't take these calls at work anymore. Someone's going to notice. This is a formal offer, Diana says. I'll email you the details this afternoon. How are you feeling about everything? How am I feeling? I'm feeling like I want to drive straight to Darren's office and quit without notice. I'm feeling vindicated and angry and scared and excited. It's a great offer, I tell her. Can I have a few days to think about it? Of course. Take your time. Thursday morning, Kevin from Hartfeld calls. Natasha, we'd like to make you an offer. I'm not even surprised anymore. Well, that's not true. I'm surprised by everything that's happening, but I've moved past the shock and into this weird state of suspended disbelief. We're offering $280,000, plus annual bonuses averaging 20%. Stock options vest over 4 years. 5 weeks vacation. Full healthcare, dental, vision. Company laptop. Home office stipend. Travel expenses. The works. $280,000. I have to ask him to repeat it because I think I misheard. 280. He says again. It's the top of our range for this role, but honestly, after talking with you and reviewing your work samples, we don't want to risk losing you to another offer. Another offer. Like I'm the kind of person who routinely gets multiple job offers. Like I have options. That's an incredible offer, Kevin. You're an incredible candidate. When would you be able to start? When would I be able to start my new life making more money than I ever imagined? When would I be available to leave behind 4 years of being told I should be grateful for less? I'd need to give 2 weeks' notice at my current position. Of course. Professional courtesy. I respect that. So we're looking at Monday the 18th? Monday the 18th. 2 weeks from now, I could be starting a job that pays more than 4 times what I'm making now. Assuming I accept the offer, yes. I hope you will. I'll send over the formal paperwork this afternoon. Take the weekend to review everything, and we'll touch base Monday. I sit in my car for 20 minutes after we hang up, just staring at my phone. $280,000. I drive back to work in a daze. I walk through the office, past Darren's corner office with his expensive chair, Past Sarah Morrison, who's explaining to a client why their report will be late again. Past James Peterson, who's on his phone planning weekend golf. I sit at my desk and stare at my computer screen. And for the first time in 4 years, I see this place clearly. I see how small they've made me feel. How they've convinced me that wanting more was unreasonable. How they've built their success on my work while paying me just enough to keep me from leaving. But not anymore. I have 2 offers. 2 incredible, life-changing offers. And on Monday morning, I'm going to walk into Darren's office and give my notice. The only question is, which offer I'm going to take. I spend the weekend in this weird bubble where everything feels surreal. I keep pulling up the offer letters on my laptop, reading them over and over like they might disappear if I don't keep checking. Coastline, $135,000. Remote work is available. Immediate start. Heartfeld, $280,000. Director-level position. Includes stock options. The smart move is Heartfeld, obviously. It's more than double Coastline's offer. It's more money than my parents made combined when I was growing up. It's set for life money. But there's this part of me that's terrified they'll change their minds. That someone will call Monday morning and say, "Actually, we made a mistake. We meant to offer you half that, because people like me don't get offers like this." Except apparently we do. Monday morning, I wake up at 5 a.m. even though my alarm isn't set until 6:30. I can't sleep. I keep rehearsing what I'm going to say to Darren, how I'm going to handle this conversation without completely burning bridges. I get to work early because I want to get this over with before I lose my nerve. The office is mostly empty, just me and a few other people who either love their jobs or hate themselves. I sit at my desk and practice typing my resignation letter. Dear Darren, please accept this letter as my formal 2 weeks notice. Delete. Dear Mr. Kowalski, I am writing to inform you of my resignation. Delete. This letter serves as formal notification that I am resigning from my position. God, this is harder than I thought. How do you professionally tell someone who laughed at your worth that you're leaving for more money than they probably make? At 8:30, I see Darren walk in with his usual Monday morning Starbucks and newspaper. He's got this routine where he reads the sports section first, then checks his emails, then starts bothering people about their weekend productivity. I give him 20 minutes to settle in, then I walk over to his office. Hey Darren, do you have a few minutes? Sure, come on in. Close the door. He doesn't look up from his computer. I actually wanted to talk to you about the Morrison account. I think we need to restructure some of the reporting timelines. I sit down across from his desk, holding my resignation letter that I finally finished typing 5 minutes ago. Actually, I need to discuss something else first. Something in my tone makes him look up. I'm giving my 2 weeks' notice. The words come out steadier than I expected. Clean and simple and final. Darren stares at me for a full 30 seconds without saying anything. I can hear the office printer warming up outside his door, someone making coffee, normal Monday morning sounds. You're quitting? Yes. Why? What happened? Did someone say something to you? And this is the moment I've been waiting for without realizing it. The moment where I get to tell him exactly why I'm leaving. I found a position that values my skills appropriately. Natasha, if this is about our conversation last week, it's not about the conversation. It's about the outcome of the conversation. He leans back in his expensive chair, and I can see him calculating, trying to figure out how much trouble this is going to cause, who he'll have to reassign my work to, how long it'll take to replace me. What kind of offer are we talking about here? Because maybe there's room for negotiation. 2 weeks ago, I would have fallen over myself to hear him say those words. 2 weeks ago, the possibility of negotiation would have felt like winning the lottery. Now it just makes me tired. I don't think we're in the same ballpark, Darren. Try me. What are they offering? I almost tell him. I almost say $280,000 just to watch his face change. But something stops me. Maybe it's professionalism. Maybe it's self-preservation. Maybe I just don't want to give him the satisfaction of knowing exactly how much he undervalued me. Significantly more than my current salary. How much more? 10,000? 15? He still doesn't get it. He still thinks I'm in his league, playing by his rules. More than that. 20? 30? Come on, Nat, help me out here. I can't make a counteroffer if I don't know what we're working with. I don't want a counteroffer, Darren. I've made my decision. This is when his expression changes. When he realizes this isn't a negotiation tactic or a plea for attention. This is actually happening. You're serious. Completely serious. What company? I'd rather not say until everything is finalized. Is it a competitor? Because you know there's a non-compete clause in your contract. And there it is. The threat. The attempt to make me feel trapped and guilty for wanting more. I've reviewed my contract. This position doesn't violate any non-compete restrictions. I haven't actually reviewed my contract that carefully, but I'm pretty sure Darren hasn't either. Natasha, I think you're making a mistake. New jobs are risky. You don't know the company culture, the management style. You've got security here. You're part of the team. Part of the team. The team that forgot to invite me to salary reviews and promotion discussions. I appreciate that, but I've made my decision. What if we revisited your compensation? I know we said next year, but maybe there's something we can do now. Now that I'm leaving, suddenly there's budget flexibility. I'm not interested in revisiting anything. My last day will be Friday the 25th. I stand up to leave, but Darren keeps talking. Just think about this over lunch, okay? Don't do anything hasty. We can figure something out. I walk back to my desk feeling lighter than I have in years. It's done. I actually did it. But the weirdest part? I don't feel vindictive or angry anymore. I just feel free. The next few days are strange. Word spreads pretty quickly that I'm leaving. And suddenly everyone wants to know where I'm going and why I'm leaving and whether I'm happy and if the new company is hiring. Sarah Morrison corners me by the coffee machine Wednesday morning. I heard you're leaving. That's so crazy. Where are you going? A consulting firm. Local? Remote? Remote. Oh my God, I'm so jealous. I've been trying to get approval to work from home 1 day a week for like 6 months. What's the pay like? Everyone wants to know about the money. It's like they can sense that something bigger is happening here. That this isn't just a lateral move to another similar company. It's a good opportunity, I tell her. But like, how much better? Because I've been thinking about looking around too, but I don't know if it's worth the hassle unless it's significantly more, you know? I want to tell her. I want to tell all of them that there are jobs out there paying twice what they make, that companies exist that actually value their employees, that we've all been settling for so much less than we're worth. But I don't, partly because it feels like bragging, and partly because I'm not sure they'd believe me. Thursday afternoon, Darren stops by my desk again. Hey, you got a minute? We walk back to his office, and this time he closes the door behind us. I've been thinking about our conversation Monday, and I want to make you an offer. Here we go. I talked to my uncle, and we're prepared to bump you up to $75,000, plus we'll fast-track you for a promotion to lead analyst. That would come with your own office and a small team to manage. $75,000. A $13,000 raise. Exactly $1,000 more than what I originally asked for. 2 months ago, this offer would have changed my life. It would have felt like winning, like finally being recognized and valued. Now it feels insulting. I appreciate the offer, Darren, but I've already accepted the other position. You signed a contract already? I gave them my verbal commitment. Verbal commitments aren't binding. Look, what if we went to 80? That's a 30% increase from where you are now. 80,000. Still less than the lowest offer I got from any of the companies that called me. It's not about the money anymore. That's not entirely true. It's absolutely about the money, but it's also about respect and trust, and the fact that they only want to pay me what I'm worth when I'm walking out the door. What can I do to change your mind? Seriously, name it. And this is the moment I realize that Darren is scared. Actually scared. He's finally done the math on what my leaving means for the department, for his workload, for the projects that only I know how to handle. Nothing, there's nothing you can do. Friday is my last day. I spend most of it documenting processes and transitioning my active projects to other people. It takes me 7 hours to create handoff notes for everything I was working on. and I realized that I was managing way more than I thought I was. The Morrison account, the Peterson presentation templates, the client reporting dashboard, 3 different database projects, training materials for new hires, backup coverage for 2 other analysts. No wonder Darren panicked. At 5 p.m., I pack up my desk. 4 years of accumulated stuff, a desk plant, some framed photos, a coffee mug I brought from home, a stapler I bought myself because the office ones are terrible. It all fits in one small cardboard box. Darren watches me pack from his office doorway. You sure about this, Nat? I'm sure. What if the new job doesn't work out? You know you're always welcome back here. Thanks. I appreciate that. I don't appreciate it, actually. But there's no point in burning bridges, even bridges to places you never want to cross again. I walk out of Brightwater Analytics at 5:47 p.m. on a Friday, carrying my small box of personal items and feeling like I'm stepping into a completely different life. Monday morning, I start work at Hartfeld Associates. The onboarding process takes 3 days, 3 full days of training, system setup, meet and greets with my new team, and orientation sessions. They assign me a buddy for my first month, give me a $2,000 stipend for home office equipment, and send me a welcome package with company swag and a handwritten note from the CEO. My first paycheck is more than I used to make in 3 months. But here's the thing nobody tells you about revenge. It's not actually about the other person. It's not about proving them wrong or making them suffer. It's about proving to yourself that you were right all along. I was worth more than they were paying me. I did deserve better. I wasn't being unrealistic or greedy or demanding. I was being human. 3 weeks into my new job, my phone rings. Unknown number, but the area code looks familiar. Natasha, this is Darren. I almost don't answer. I'm in my home office, working on a data strategy presentation for a client meeting, drinking coffee from a mug I actually chose instead of whatever was left in the office kitchen. Hi, Darren. Hey, I hope it's okay that I'm calling. I got your number from HR. What can I do for you? Well, we're having some trouble with the Morrison account. Their Q3 reporting requirements changed. And honestly, nobody here really understands the dashboard system you built. Sarah's been trying to figure it out, but Sarah doesn't understand pivot tables, much less complex data visualization dashboards. I documented everything before I left. I know. And your notes are great, really comprehensive. But there are some specific client requirements that weren't in the documentation, and we're kind of stuck. I wait for him to ask his actual question. I was wondering if you might be available for some consulting work, just a few hours to help us navigate this transition. We'd pay your consulting rate, of course. My consulting rate. I don't have a consulting rate. I've never been a consultant. What kind of timeline are we talking about? Well, the client presentation is next Friday. So pretty immediate. I know it's a big ask, but you're the only person who really knows this system inside and out. The only person who knows how to do the work that he told me I was already overpaid for. I'll have to check my schedule and get back to you. Of course, but if you could let me know soon, that would be great. We're really in a bind here. After we hang up, I sit in my home office for a long time, thinking, I could help them. I could spend a few hours this week walking Sarah through the dashboard system and ensuring a smooth client presentation. It would be the professional thing to do, the kind thing to do. Or I could let them figure it out themselves. In the end, I text him back. After reviewing my current commitments, I won't be able to take on additional consulting work at this time. Best of luck with the presentation. He calls me twice after that. I don't answer. 6 months later, I get a LinkedIn message from Jennifer in HR. Hey, Natasha. Hope you're doing well in your new role. We're hiring for a senior data scientist position, and I immediately thought of you. Would you be interested in discussing an opportunity to come back to the Brightwater family? Senior Data Scientist. The title I should have had 2 years ago. I don't respond to that message either. Here's what I want you to understand. This isn't really a story about getting revenge on a bad boss. This is a story about finally seeing your own worth clearly. For 4 years, I let other people define my value. I let them convince me that wanting more was unrealistic, that being grateful for less was somehow noble. But the truth is, nobody else gets to decide what you're worth. Not your boss, not your company, not your family, not society. You get to decide that. And once you really know your worth, not just intellectually, but in your bones, everything changes. It changes how you walk into rooms, how you talk about your work, how you negotiate, how you show up in the world. It changes what you're willing to accept and what you're willing to walk away from. I'm not making $280,000 a year because I'm special or lucky or because I somehow magically transformed overnight. I'm making that money because I finally stopped undervaluing myself. The company I left? They hired 3 people to replace me. 3. And according to my former colleague, who still texts me occasionally, they're still struggling with some of the systems I built. Darren got promoted to regional director 6 months after I left, which is hilarious, because his region is now performing worse than it has in 5 years. Sometimes the best revenge is just living well. Sometimes it's knowing that while they're scrambling to replace you with 3 people, you're building something bigger and better and more valuable than they could ever imagine. And sometimes, when your old boss calls you desperate and panicked, asking for help with work he once told you were overpaid to do, the sweetest revenge is just saying no. If you made it this far, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And tell me in the comments, what's the biggest risk you've ever taken for yourself? When did you finally decide you were worth more? Because I need you to know that you are. You're worth more than whatever situation you're settling for. You're worth more than the people who make you feel small. You're worth exactly what you decide you're worth. And once you really believe that, everything becomes possible. Everyone gets a 20% raise except you, my boss announced smugly across the table. Your performance doesn't justify it. The conference room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. My colleagues shifted uncomfortably, eyes fixed on their notepads. 3 years of skipped vacations, missed family dinners, and 4 a.m. client calls to Japan, all dismissed in one cruel sentence. I sat perfectly still, watching him tap his gold pen against the quarterly report I'd prepared. The same report showing I'd brought in 37% of our new business this year. I understand, I said quietly, gathering my papers. We'll revisit in 6 months, he added with that dismissive wave I'd grown to hate. Walking back to my desk, my phone buzzed. Hisashi from our Japanese client was texting about their planned contract expansion, the one that would double our revenue, the one my boss knew nothing about yet. A plan began forming in my mind. Sometimes the best response isn't an argument, it's a demonstration. And tomorrow's company-wide meeting would be the perfect stage for it. Before I share what happened next, I need you to understand something. I'm not someone who seeks revenge. But there comes a point when standing up for yourself becomes necessary, not just for your own dignity, but for everyone who might face the same treatment after you. Stay with me until the end, because what unfolded changed not just my career, but the entire company's future in ways no one could have predicted. My name is Avenya. At 32, I was the international account manager at a data analytics firm in Chicago. I joined the company after graduating with my MBA, determined to prove myself in an industry dominated by men 20 years my senior. I'm the daughter of Filipino immigrants who sacrificed everything for my education, teaching me that hard work always pays off, a belief my boss, Arendor, seemed determined to test. I'm naturally reserved, more comfortable analyzing spreadsheets than speaking in meetings. But beneath my quiet exterior runs a deep current of determination that my grandmother called tigas ng loob, toughness of spirit. It's what kept me going through 16-hour workdays and countless setbacks in an environment where being overlooked seemed to be my permanent condition. When I first joined the company, I admired Arendor. He appeared decisive, commanding respect with his booming voice and confident directives. He'd built the company from a small consultancy into a mid-sized firm with 50 employees. But as years passed, I noticed how he claimed credit for others' ideas, particularly mine. How he interrupted female employees but never male ones. How promotions went to those who mirrored his aggressive style, regardless of their actual contributions. The Japanese account had been my focus for 18 months. No one else wanted it. The time difference meant early mornings and late nights, plus there were cultural nuances that required patience and study. I learned basic Japanese, researched business etiquette, and slowly built trust with Hisashi's team at Sakura Technologies. What began as a modest consulting arrangement had grown into our largest potential international partnership. Each week, I sent Arendor detailed reports on my progress. Each week, they disappeared into what seemed like a void. In executive meetings, he would vaguely reference our work with the Japanese client, without acknowledging my specific contributions. When positive feedback came from Hisashi, Arendor would forward the emails to the executive team with a preface like, "Our approach is yielding results," conveniently removing my name from the exchange. Still, I persisted. My parents hadn't crossed an ocean and worked multiple jobs for me to give up because one man wouldn't recognize my value. The morning after being denied my raise, I arrived early. The office was empty, except for Nadia, our receptionist, who had worked at the company since its founding. With her silver-streaked hair and penetrating gaze, she missed nothing that happened within these walls. "Rough meeting yesterday?" she asked, sliding a cup of tea across her desk to me. I hesitated. Office politics weren't my strong suit, and complaining felt unprofessional. "I heard," she said simply, "Arendor was bragging to Keith about how he managed expectations with you." My fingers tightened around the warm cup. "Is that what he calls it?" Nadia looked over her reading glasses. "You know, I've been here 12 years. Seen a lot of talented people come and go. The ones who last aren't always the most skilled. They're the ones who learn to play the game." "I'm not interested in games," I said. "I just want my work to speak for itself." "How's that working out for you?" She raised an eyebrow. I had no answer. "The company meeting today," she continued. "Arendor's planning to showcase the Japanese account. 15 slides about his strategy that won them over." My stomach tightened. "How do you know that?" "I proofread his presentations. Been doing it for years." She leaned forward. "Ellie, not once does your name appear." I should have felt angry, but instead, a strange calm settled over me. The situation was so absurd it had crossed into clarity. "What time did Hisashi say he'd call today?" Nadia asked. I checked my calendar. Around 10:30. He wants to discuss the contract expansion before their board meeting tonight. "Interesting," Nadia said. "The company meeting starts at 10. We exchanged a look of perfect understanding. "I'd better make sure the conference room speaker system is working properly," she said with the ghost of a smile. By 9:55, all 50 employees were filing into our main conference room. I took a seat along the wall rather than at the table, my phone placed visibly beside me. Arendor stood at the front, cycling through his presentation notes while our technical team adjusted the projector. Keith, Arendor's second-in-command and devoted follower, distributed printed copies of the quarterly report, my report, with my name removed from the cover. I watched my colleagues flip through the pages, stopping at the growth charts I had spent weekends perfecting. At exactly 10, Arendor cleared his throat. "Let's get started. First, I want to congratulate everyone on a successful quarter. As you'll see on page 4, our growth has exceeded projections by 12%. He continued for 20 minutes, highlighting achievements across departments. When he reached the international section, he clicked to a slide showing the Japanese flag alongside our company logo. Now for our most exciting development. As many of you know, I've been cultivating a relationship with Sakura Technologies in Tokyo. I felt heat rise in my cheeks as several colleagues glanced my way, then quickly back to their notepads. Through careful, strategic planning, we've positioned ourselves to expand this relationship significantly. My approach has been to demonstrate our value incrementally, building trust through consistent delivery. My approach, my careful relationship building, my 4 a.m. calls and cultural research and language lessons. Arendor continued, "I expect to finalize an expanded contract within the month, potentially doubling our current arrangement." Just as he clicked to the next slide, my phone lit up. The caller ID displayed, Hisashi Takeda, Sakura Tech. Perfect timing. I raised my hand slightly. Arendor paused, irritation flashing across his face. "Yes, Avenya?" "I'm sorry to interrupt," I said clearly. It's Hisashi from Sakura Technologies calling. Should I take it or call back later? The room fell silent. Arendor's expression flickered between annoyance and panic. We're in a meeting, he said stiffly. Of course. I'll message that you're unavailable to discuss the contract expansion. More silence. I could almost hear Arendor calculating the optics of dismissing a call from our biggest potential client in front of the entire company. No, he finally said. Take it, briefly. I answered the phone. Good morning, Hisashi. You're actually on speaker with our whole team during our company meeting. Ah, excellent timing. Hisashi's voice filled the room. I was calling with wonderful news I wanted to share with you first, but now everyone can hear. I caught Arendor's panicked expression. He clearly hadn't expected Hisashi to be so enthusiastic about speaking to me specifically. Our board met early this morning, Hisashi continued. We've decided to increase our contract to $12 million, 3 times the original amount we discussed. Your strategic approach and attention to our specific needs impressed everyone tremendously. The room went completely still. $12 million. It would be the largest contract in our company's history. That's wonderful news, I replied, maintaining professional composure while my heart raced. There's more, Hisashi said. As I mentioned in our private discussions last month, we've been looking for someone to head our new international division based in our Singapore office. The board has officially approved our offer to you. $300,000 annually plus relocation and benefits. We believe your vision aligns perfectly with our expansion goals. I watched Arendor's face drain of color as he gripped the edge of the podium. I'm honored by your offer, I said carefully. This actually comes at an interesting time. I hope that means you'll consider it seriously. Hisashi replied. Oh, and one more thing before I let you return to your meeting. We should mention that the acquisition will be finalized next week. Murmurs broke out across the room. Acquisition? No one had mentioned any acquisition. Acquisition? I asked, though I already suspected what was coming. Yes, our purchase of your company. Didn't your leadership team inform everyone? The paperwork is nearly complete. We're looking forward to restructuring the leadership with your guidance on who truly drives value. The room erupted in hushed conversations and shocked expressions. Arendor stood frozen, his presentation forgotten on the screen behind him. I believe this might be news to some of my colleagues, I said carefully. Perhaps we should discuss the details later today. Of course. I apologize if I've spoken out of turn. Please call me after your meeting to discuss next steps. Have a good day, everyone. The call ended, leaving a deafening silence in the conference room. Arendor cleared his throat. Let's take a 15-minute break, he announced, his voice strained. We'll resume with the marketing update afterward. As people filed out, buzzing with questions, Arendor approached me. My office. Now, he hissed. I followed him down the hallway, aware of eyes watching us go. Inside his office, he closed the door and turned to me. What acquisition? What job offer? What have you been discussing with them without authorization? I maintained my composure. Hisashi reached out to me directly last month about their interest in acquiring a controlling stake in our company. I forwarded you 3 emails about it. I also mentioned their interest in creating an international division during our strategy meeting 2 weeks ago. Arendor's face reddened. I don't recall any of this. I have the email thread saved, along with your replies saying you'd handle it at the executive level. As for the job offer, that was unexpected. I haven't given them an answer. He ran a hand through his hair, processing the implications. This is all moving too fast. We need to slow this down, renegotiate terms. The terms are quite favorable, I said. The valuation is 30% above market rate. I assumed you were pleased with the arrangement. We can't just let them take over. His voice rose. And we certainly can't have them restructuring leadership based on your opinions. I looked at him steadily. Yesterday, you told me my performance didn't justify a raise, despite bringing in nearly 40% of our new business. Today, our largest client offered me a position at 3 times my current salary because of that same performance. Which assessment do you think is more accurate? If you're enjoying this story so far, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Click the notification bell so you never miss our weekly stories of workplace justice and sweet, satisfying revenge. Our community thrives on sharing these moments when underestimated people finally get their due, and trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next in Avenya's showdown. Arendor stared at me, his confidence visibly crumbling as the reality of his situation sank in. For the first time since I'd known him, he seemed at a loss for words. "Look," he finally said, lowering his voice to a more conciliatory tone. "Perhaps I was hasty yesterday. We could revisit your compensation package. A 25% raise instead of 20%, effective immediately." I studied the man who had dismissed my contributions for years. Now he was scrambling, attempting to salvage his position with money he'd denied me just 24 hours earlier. "This isn't about the raise anymore, Arendor." "Then what do you want? A promotion? A different title?" "Recognition. Respect. Things you can't suddenly offer when it's convenient." He leaned against his desk, attempting to regain composure. "You don't understand the pressures of running a company like this. Sometimes difficult decisions—" "Save it," I interrupted, surprising myself with my boldness. "For 3 years, I've watched you take credit for others' work, not just mine." Devon developed the algorithm that attracted the Australian clients. Amara created the analytics dashboard everyone praises. Yet somehow, these accomplishments always become leadership initiatives in your presentations. His eyes narrowed. "That's how business works. Everything ultimately reflects my leadership. And now your leadership has led us to an acquisition where the new owners value my input on restructuring." I let that sink in before continuing. "They specifically asked for my assessment of our organizational strengths and weaknesses." The threat wasn't subtle. Arendor's fate potentially rested in my hands. "You wouldn't sabotage your colleagues out of personal vendetta," he said, but uncertainty crept into his voice. "I'd never harm this team. Unlike you, I value everyone's contributions." I moved toward the door. "The meeting's about to resume. Shall we continue pretending nothing has changed?" The remainder of the company meeting was a study in discomfort. Arendor attempted to proceed with the agenda, but questions about the acquisition dominated the discussion. With each inquiry, he deferred vaguely to ongoing negotiations while avoiding eye contact with me. By noon, the office was buzzing with speculation. My colleagues approached me cautiously, probing for information about Sakura Technologies and the potential restructuring. I answered honestly but carefully, conscious that my words carried new weight. Nadia caught me as I returned from lunch. "Your office has been busy," she whispered, nodding toward my door. Sure enough, a line of anxious colleagues waited outside, each clutching folders or notepads, evidence of their contributions they feared had been overlooked. First was Devon, our algorithm specialist, who'd been passed over for promotion twice. "I just wanted to remind you about the Australian project," he began tentatively. "I have documentation of my development process if it's relevant to any discussions." After him came Amara, then Jesse, then Pavel, each recounting projects where their work had been absorbed into Arendor's narrative of success. With each conversation, the pattern became clearer. Talented people systematically denied recognition. At 3 o'clock, my phone rang again. Hisashi wanted to schedule a video call to discuss transition details. I reserved the small conference room, away from Arendor's office. On screen, Hisashi appeared with 2 Sakura executives I'd met during their visit last spring. After exchanging pleasantries, they outlined their vision for the acquisition. "We value your company's technical expertise," Hisashi explained, "but we've observed concerning leadership practices during our due diligence." "What sort of practices?" I asked, though I already knew. "Credit concentration, decision bottlenecks, talent retention issues. Our research shows several key contributors left within the past 2 years, citing lack of recognition." I nodded. "That aligns with my observations. We'd like you to prepare a talent assessment, identifying who truly drives innovation and client satisfaction. This will inform our restructuring decisions." He paused. "Regardless of your decision about the Singapore position, we value your insight." The conversation continued for an hour, covering integration timelines and announcement protocols. By the end, I understood my unexpected power. I could shape the future of the company and the futures of everyone who worked there. Walking back to my office, I passed Arendor huddled with Keith and two other executives, their worried expressions telling me they were discussing damage control. They fell silent as I passed. My desk phone rang moments after I sat down. It was Arendor's assistant, requesting my presence in the executive conference room. When I arrived, only Arendor was there, sitting at the head of the table with a folder in front of him. "Close the door," he said without looking up. I did, then remained standing. "I've been reviewing your personnel file," he began, opening the folder. "Your initial interview notes mention reluctance to assert herself in group settings and needs development in leadership presence. These concerns have persisted in your performance reviews." I almost laughed at the transparent attempt to undermine my confidence. Are those the same reviews where I exceeded every quantitative target? He ignored my question. "The point is, Avenya, you lack the executive presence to guide a restructuring process. Your technical skills are valuable, but you don't understand the nuances of organizational dynamics. Is that why Sakura Technologies offered me an executive position?" His jaw tightened. "They don't know you like I do. They see quarterly results, not day-to-day limitations." "Interesting perspective," I replied. "What exactly did you call me here to discuss?" He closed the folder and leaned forward. "I'm offering you a deal. Support me during this transition. Emphasize my strategic vision to the acquisition team. In return, you'll receive the promotion to senior director you've wanted, plus the raise we discussed earlier." The proposal was so predictable, I almost felt disappointed. And if I decline, then I'll be forced to highlight certain performance inconsistencies in my handover reports. Your judgment calls on the Brazilian market entry, for instance, or your initial reluctance with the Japanese cultural training. Blackmail, thinly veiled as professional feedback. I remained silent, considering my response. "Additionally," he continued, "I've prepared an alternative acquisition proposal for the board, one that maintains our executive structure while still delivering shareholder value. You're assuming the board will choose your leadership over Sakura's offer." "I founded this company," he said, voice rising slightly. "The board respects my vision." I studied him, this man who had built something significant yet couldn't share credit for its success. There was something almost tragic in his desperation. "I'll consider your proposal," I said finally. "You have until tomorrow morning. The board meets at 11. I left without further comment, my mind already sorting through options. Back at my desk, I found a message from Hisashi requesting our talent assessment by the following afternoon. The timing wasn't coincidental. Sakura wanted my input before finalizing their approach with our board. That evening, I stayed late, reviewing 3 years of projects, team compositions, and results. The pattern was unmistakable. Our most successful initiatives came from collaborative teams that Arendor had minimal involvement with, yet he had positioned himself as the architect of each success. At 9, Nadia knocked on my door, coat already on. "Still here? You should rest before tomorrow's chaos." "Almost finished," I said, gesturing to my notes. She lingered in the doorway. "You know, in 12 years, I've kept many secrets for Arendor. Professional discretion and all that." I looked up, sensing she had more to say. "But there's something you should see before you make any decisions." She placed a flash drive on my desk. Board presentation drafts from the last 3 years. Notice how they evolve from initial submission to final version. "How did you get these?" "I format all executive presentations. Always keep backups in case of technical issues." She gave me a meaningful look. Technical issues happen quite frequently around here. After she left, I plugged in the drive. The files showed a systematic pattern. Initial presentations credited team members by name, while final versions consolidated achievements under executive leadership initiatives. In some cases, entire slides featuring individual contributors were removed. Most damning were the track changes in the documents, with Arendor's user ID explicitly removing names and reassigning credit. One comment on a presentation about the Australian algorithm read, "Remove Devon's name. Position as executive strategy." It was nearly midnight when I finished my analysis. I had what I needed, not just for my own vindication, but for everyone whose contributions had been erased. The next morning, I arrived early, finding an email from Arendor reiterating his offer with additional pressure tactics. I didn't respond. Instead, I prepared two documents: my talent assessment for Sakura and a separate presentation for our board meeting. At 10:30, board members began arriving. I nodded politely as they passed, receiving curious looks in return. They'd all heard about yesterday's revelation, though none addressed it directly. At 10:55, Arendor intercepted me in the hallway. "Your decision?" he demanded. "I'll be presenting my perspective to the board," I said simply. His expression hardened. "Remember what we discussed. Actions have consequences." They certainly do. The boardroom fell silent as I entered behind Arendor. 12 board members sat around the table, with 3 Sakura representatives joining via video conference. I took a seat against the wall, deliberately positioning myself as an observer rather than a participant. Our board chair, Vivian, called the meeting to order. "As you're all aware, we've received an acquisition offer from Sakura Technologies. We're here to discuss its implications and determine our response." She nodded to Arendor. As CEO, Arendor will present his assessment and recommendation. He stood, projecting confidence as he distributed printed materials. "Thank you, Vivian. While this offer appears attractive on the surface, I have serious concerns about the proposed leadership restructuring. Our success stems from our current organizational structure, a structure I've carefully cultivated." For 30 minutes, he outlined his counterproposal, accepting Sakura's investment but maintaining the existing leadership team. He emphasized stability, continuity, and his personal relationships with key clients. "Questions?" Vivian asked when he finished. "Yes," said one board member. "The Sakura offer specifically mentions concerns about credit concentration and talent retention. Could you address those?" Arendor smiled dismissively. "Creative professionals often desire more recognition than organizational realities allow. Every company balances individual ambitions with cohesive leadership. Our attrition rates are within industry norms." Vivian turned to the video screen. "Hisashi, would you like to respond?" Hisashi nodded. "Our due diligence raised specific concerns about how contributions are recognized and rewarded. We believe the company's future growth depends on properly valuing its talent. That's why we requested Ms. Avenya's assessment." All eyes turned to me. "Avenya," Vivian said, "would you share your perspective?" I stood, connecting my laptop to the projector. "I've prepared a brief presentation analyzing our team structure and project outcomes." Arendor's expression shifted from confidence to alarm as my first slide appeared: attribution analysis, project success factors, and credit distribution. For the next 20 minutes, I methodically presented data showing how our most successful projects correlated with collaborative leadership rather than top-down direction. I highlighted team members whose contributions had been systematically obscured in executive presentations. "And finally," I said, reaching my conclusion, "I'd like to address the question of executive credit appropriation." I displayed a series of before and after slides from Nadia's flash drive, showing Arendor's systematic removal of individual contributors' names. These tracked changes document a pattern of credit reassignment that affected at least 17 employees over 3 years. I explained. "This pattern correlates directly with our increasing turnover rate among high performers." The room was absolutely still. Arendor stared at me with undisguised hatred. "To be clear," I continued, "I'm not suggesting our technical capabilities are anything but excellent. Our team is exceptional. But their continued motivation depends on a leadership structure that values their contributions." Vivian studied me carefully. "What would you recommend, Avenya?" "A flatter organizational structure with distributed leadership responsibilities, team-based performance metrics rather than individual heroics, and most importantly, transparent attribution of ideas and innovations." I glanced at the video screen, where Hisashi nodded approvingly. "Thank you," Vivian said. "Arendor, would you like to respond?" He stood slowly, his composure visibly strained. "These selective examples don't reflect the full context of our operational decisions." Leadership sometimes requires difficult choices about attribution to maintain competitive positioning. I've always acted in the company's best interests. By taking credit for others' work? Asked a board member. By presenting a unified executive vision to clients and partners, he countered. The discussion continued for another hour, growing increasingly tense as board members questioned specific instances of credit appropriation. Throughout, Arendor maintained that his actions were standard executive practice, even as evidence mounted against him. Finally, Vivian called for a short break. As people filed out, Arendor approached me, speaking low enough that only I could hear. You've made a serious mistake. Even if they replace me, your reputation is finished. No one trusts a traitor. I met his gaze calmly. I'm not the one who betrayed this team, Arendor. When the meeting reconvened, Vivian announced their decision. They would accept Sakura's acquisition offer, including the leadership restructuring provisions. Arendor would transition to an advisory role during integration, with his long-term position to be determined. The following weeks transformed our company. Sakura appointed an interim leadership team that included me as International Strategy Director, a position I accepted instead of the Singapore role, choosing to remain with the team I'd grown to care about. Arendor cleared out his office on a Friday afternoon, avoiding eye contact with everyone. His legacy of intimidation dissolved quickly as people realized they could safely share ideas and claim rightful credit for their work. 3 months after the acquisition, we gathered for our quarterly review. Project teams proudly presented their own achievements, names prominently displayed on slides. Collaboration flourished as fear receded. Our turnover rate dropped to 0. After the meeting, Nadia found me in my new office. Not the corner suite Arendor had occupied, but a glass-walled space in the middle of our work area. Quite a change, she observed. People actually smile in the hallways now. Change was overdue, I said. I just wish it hadn't required such drama. She shook her head. Some lessons only come through consequences. Speaking of which, she handed me an industry newsletter, open to a small announcement. Arendor had accepted a strategic advisor position at a struggling startup, several steps down from his former status. The business world notices how you treat people, Nadia said. Eventually. That evening, I received an email from Hisashi with our latest client satisfaction scores, the highest in company history. Attached was a performance review praising our culture of recognition and authentic leadership. I forwarded it to the entire team with a simple note. This belongs to all of us. Because true leadership isn't about claiming credit. It's about creating space for everyone to shine. If this story resonated with you, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had your contributions overlooked or witnessed someone else's work being claimed by a superior? How did you handle it? Our community thrives on these shared experiences of workplace justice and personal growth. Remember, recognition isn't just about ego. It's about creating environments where talent can flourish. Sometimes the most powerful response to being undervalued isn't just walking away, but helping build something better for everyone. Subscribe now for more stories of resilience, redemption, and the sweet satisfaction of earning your rightful place. The glass door to our quarterly meeting flew open with such force that the crash echoed through the atrium. Rain stormed in, her face twisted with rage, clutching printouts in her trembling hand. "Stand up," she commanded, her voice cutting through the sudden silence. 200 employees froze mid-presentation. I rose slowly from my chair, confusion flooding my mind as all eyes turned to me. "Is this your email address?" She thrust the paper toward my face, her crimson nail tapping against the header. "Yes, but did you send this yesterday at 4:32 p.m.? Her words sliced through my attempt to speak. An email containing our proprietary formulation for the $50 million government contract to our competitors? My stomach hollowed. No, I never. "Liar!" Rain slammed her hand onto the glass table. The sound reverberated through the atrium like a gunshot. "How dare you betray us like this?" Whispers erupted around me. Colleagues I'd worked alongside for 7 years inched away as if betrayal was contagious. "I didn't send a..." "The evidence is right here." She waved the papers wildly. "Your email, your access code. Your betrayal. Security appeared at the doorway. Men I'd greeted every morning for years. Now they watched me with cold suspicion. 7 years, Rain continued, her voice rising to ensure everyone heard my public execution. 7 years we trusted you with our research. You pioneered our breakthrough plant growth formula, the one that helps crops withstand drought while remaining completely organic, the one that was going to change agriculture forever. And this is how you repay us? My heart hammered against my ribs. The agricultural biostimulant we developed was revolutionary. Farmers across drought-stricken regions could grow crops with minimal water while maintaining organic certification. It had been my life's work. Pack your desk. Rain's voice sliced through my thoughts. You'll never work in this industry again. The security guards moved toward me. 200 employees watched as I walked out, legs weak beneath me, too stunned to defend myself. At my desk, a guard handed me a cardboard box. 5 minutes, he said coldly. I mechanically gathered my personal belongings, the photo of my parents' farm, a ceramic mug from college, a few books, 7 years of work, and it all fit in one small box. As I reached for my coat, a hand touched my shoulder. I turned to find Wyatt, my lab assistant for the past 3 years, looking uncomfortable. I can't believe you did this, he whispered. Disappointment etched across his face. We were so close to changing agriculture forever. I didn't, I insisted, my voice breaking. Wyatt, you know me. His eyes darted to the security guards, then back to me. Everyone saw the evidence, Meredith. The use of my last name instead of Cora cut deeper than I expected. Wyatt stepped back, creating physical distance to match the emotional chasm that had instantly formed between us. Time's up, the guard announced, gesturing toward the exit. The walk through the office was excruciating. Faces I'd known for years, people I'd celebrated milestones with, solved problems with, built something meaningful with, all turned away. No one made eye contact, no one offered support. I was already erased. Outside, the bright spring sunshine felt like a mockery. Clutching my box, I watched the glass doors close behind me, cutting me off from everything I'd worked toward since graduate school. My phone buzzed with notifications. Your access has been revoked. Your email account has been suspended due to corporate espionage allegations. Direct deposit canceled by employer. In 20 minutes, my entire professional identity had been obliterated. I sat in my car, hands shaking too badly to insert the key. The truth hammered in my head. I knew exactly why this had happened, and it had nothing to do with leaking secrets to competitors. If you're feeling the sting of this injustice alongside me, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to hear how this story unfolds. Have you ever been wrongfully accused? Share your experience in the comments. Your story matters too. My name is Cora Meredith, and until 6 weeks ago, I was the lead agricultural researcher at Nature Growth Solutions, developing organic plant stimulants that could revolutionize farming in drought-affected regions. Now I'm about to tell you how everything I'd worked for was stolen from me in an instant, and what happened next. 6 months before my public firing, I'd discovered something alarming during routine quality testing. Our organic plant formulation had been subtly altered. Several key ingredients had been substituted with synthetic chemicals that mimicked growth patterns but were fundamentally different at the molecular level. These changes weren't immediately obvious unless you knew exactly what to look for. And as the lead researcher who developed the original formula, I did. These synthetic compounds could potentially contaminate groundwater and soil microbiomes. The $50 million government contract specifically required 100% organic composition, with strict environmental safety parameters. When I raised concerns privately with Rain, she brushed me off. The testing panels won't detect these compounds, she'd said, her voice casual as if discussing a minor packaging change. We save millions in production costs, and no one will ever know the difference. But it's not what we promised, I'd argued, and we don't have enough long-term data to know if... Are you questioning my decision? Her tone shifted instantly, eyes narrowing. Because I can always find researchers who understand how business works. I persisted, showing her my findings, explaining the potential environmental impact. The next day, my workspace was moved from the main lab to a smaller auxiliary space. The week after, I was excluded from strategy meetings I'd always attended. Projects were reassigned. Impossible deadlines appeared for trivial tasks. The message was clear: drop it or be pushed out. Instead, I started keeping alternative formulation samples at home, working nights to perfect a truly organic version that matched the performance of our current product. 3 days before my firing, I noticed my email had been accessed while I was at lunch. The next day, sensitive files were moved on my computer. Now, sitting in my car outside the building that had been my second home, I understood. Rain hadn't just fired me, she'd destroyed me. My reputation was shattered. No agricultural research facility would touch me with accusations of corporate espionage hanging over my head. What puzzled me was the email. I truly hadn't sent our formula to anyone, but denying it now would be pointless. Rain had made sure everyone believed I was guilty. I finally managed to start my car. As I pulled away from the parking lot, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello?" I answered. "Is this Cora Meredith?" A male voice asked. "Yes. This is Trevor Wilson from Harvest Sciences. We received an interesting email from you yesterday, but our security flagged it before anyone could examine the contents. Given the sensitive nature, I wanted to speak with you directly." My heart stopped. "I didn't send you any email." A pause. "Well, it came from your address. Something about a government contract formulation?" "That wasn't me," I insisted, pulling over because my hands had started shaking again. "Someone must have accessed my account." "I see," Trevor said carefully. "You should know that we've already alerted your company about this contact. We take intellectual property very seriously." "Of course you did," I whispered, realizing Rain's claim hadn't been entirely fabricated. Someone had sent an email from my account. I just hadn't been the sender. "For what it's worth," Trevor added, his voice softer, "I thought it seemed out of character. We've met at several industry conferences, and you've always struck me as intensely principled." The call ended, and I sat staring at nothing. I'd been perfectly set up. Rain had manufactured my downfall while protecting her modified formula. I wish I could say I immediately plotted my revenge, that I drove away from Nature Growth Solutions with a master plan forming in my mind. The truth was much messier. I spent the first night sobbing in my bathroom, the second day frantically sending emails to contacts who never responded, and the third morning sick with anxiety before my first job interview. I didn't get that job, or the next one, or any of the 12 I applied for over the following 3 weeks. The agricultural research community was smaller than outsiders realized, and word had spread. I was toxic, untouchable. Former colleagues avoided me. Professional connections disappeared. One former mentor answered my call only to tell me he couldn't risk his reputation by being associated with me. With rent due and savings dwindling, I made the call I'd been avoiding. "Mom, I need to come home for a while." My parents owned a small farm in western Nebraska, 110 acres of increasingly thirsty land that had been in our family for 3 generations. They'd scraped together enough money to send me to college, proud that their daughter would be the first Meredith with a PhD, never expecting I'd return in disgrace at 34. "We're glad to have you home," my father said that evening at dinner, though the worry lines around his eyes told a different story. The farm was struggling. 3 years of insufficient rainfall had reduced yields dramatically. They didn't need another mouth to feed. "It's temporary," I promised, though I had no idea how I'd rebuild my career. "I'll help with the farm while I'm here." "We could use it," my mother admitted. The eastern field barely produced anything last season. That night, staring at my childhood ceiling, an idea formed. I still had my alternative formulation samples, the truly organic versions I'd been developing in secret. I'd brought them with me, unable to abandon years of research even in my hasty departure. The next morning, I approached my father. "Would you let me test something on a small section of the struggling field?" He eyed me cautiously. "What kind of test?" "The biostimulant I was developing. The real one, not the version my company perverted. It could help the soil retain moisture and strengthen the plant's root systems. And if it fails, we can't afford to lose any more yield." "Just 5 acres, I pleaded. "The worst section that barely produced last year." He agreed reluctantly. Over the next week, I applied my formula to the test section, carefully documenting every step. While waiting for results, I took odd jobs in town, helping at the local garden center, tutoring high school students in chemistry, anything to contribute to the household income. 3 weeks later, the difference was visible. My test section showed stronger seedlings, deeper green color, and better soil moisture retention than the rest of the field. My father stood at the edge of the plot, shaking his head in amazement. Whatever you did, it's working. For the first time since my firing, I felt a flicker of purpose. I still had my knowledge. My research wasn't entirely lost. But the victory was bittersweet. While I could help my parents' small farm, the contaminated formula from Nature Growth would soon be applied to thousands of acres across the country under the government contract. One evening, while helping my mother with dishes, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "It's Wyatt. Got your number from old team roster. Gov inspection tomorrow. Rain is confident. Everyone's getting bonuses after contract signing next week." I nearly dropped a plate. Wyatt had reached out despite the risk to his position. The inspection, the final step before the contract would be officially signed, was happening already. "What's wrong?" my mother asked, noticing my expression. I couldn't burden her with the full truth, so I simplified. "My old company is about to secure a huge contract with a product that isn't what they claim it is." She dried her hands and sat at the kitchen table, gesturing for me to join her. "When your father's uncle sold diseased seed corn to the Andersons back in '78, it nearly bankrupted them. Your grandfather made him buy back every bushel, even though it meant taking a loan against the farm. He said integrity in agriculture isn't negotiable because everyone has to eat what we grow." That night, I stared at the darkness. Thousands of farms would use the contaminated formula on food crops. I'd tried contacting regulatory agencies after my firing, but without proof, they dismissed my claims as those of a disgruntled ex-employee. The next morning, I drove to the county library to use their computer, not wanting to leave search trails on my parents' home device. I researched the specific government testing protocols for the contract. The standard procedure involved analyzing samples provided by the company, then comparing them to random samples from production batches. But how could I, an outsider now, possibly affect this process? 2 days passed. Wyatt texted again. "Inspection went perfectly. Contract signing on Tuesday. Sorry things went bad for you." I felt physically ill. Tuesday. 4 days away. Once that contract was signed, the altered formula would spread across American farmland, with unknown environmental consequences. That evening, I walked the perimeter of our property, breathing in the scent of soil and growing things, trying to clear my head. My phone rang, another unknown number. "Is this Dr. Meredith?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes," I answered cautiously. "This is Leona Hayes with the Department of Agricultural Oversight. We're reviewing some testing protocols, and your name came up as the original developer of the Nature Growth drought-resistant biostimulant." My pulse quickened. "That's correct. Can you clarify something for me? In the molecular binding process described in the patent, there's reference to a catalyst that seems inconsistent with the organic certification requirements." This was unexpected. The inspection had supposedly gone perfectly according to Wyatt, yet here was a government official asking very specific questions about potential inconsistencies. The original formula used an enzyme-based catalyst derived from mushroom mycelium. I explained carefully. "It's completely organic. If you're seeing something different, it would be a deviation from my research." "Interesting," Leona said. "Would you be willing to review some documentation for us? Strictly confidential, of course." "Absolutely," I agreed, hope flickering for the first time in weeks. "I'll send a secure link. We need your insights by tomorrow afternoon." After the call ended, I sat on the old wooden fence, mind racing. Had the inspection actually revealed problems? Was there still a chance to stop this? The secure files arrived an hour later. I stayed up until 3 a.m. analyzing them, then sent back a detailed report highlighting 7 specific discrepancies between the documentation and what a truly organic formula would show. The next morning, I checked my email hourly, but heard nothing. By evening, my hope was fading. I checked agricultural news feeds, expecting to see preparations for the contract announcement. Instead, nothing. complete silence. The day before the scheduled contract signing, I woke to a text from Wyatt. Emergency meeting called. Everyone on edge. No explanation given. Something was happening. I refreshed news sites repeatedly throughout the day, searching for any mention of nature growth or the government contract. At 4:17 p.m., the headline finally appeared. Major biostimulant contract, suspended pending investigation. I stared at my phone screen, reading the headline over and over. My hands trembled. Suspended. Pending investigation. I called my parents into the kitchen and showed them the news alert. "What does this mean?" my father asked. "I'm not sure yet," I admitted, "but something's happening." Within hours, industry forums buzzed with speculation. Nature Growth stock dropped 12% before trading was temporarily halted. No official statement had been released from the company or government agencies. That night, another text from Wyatt. "Complete chaos here. Rain locked in meetings with legal team. No one telling us anything." I barely slept, refreshing news sites hourly. The next morning, a new development. Government inspectors returned to nature growth facilities. By afternoon, local news stations showed footage of people in white hazard suits entering the production facility. The agricultural science community erupted with theories. Former colleagues started reaching out, cautiously at first, then with increasing urgency. "Cora, what's happening?" texted Phoebe from quality control. "Did you know about this?" asked Damien from the research division. I answered none of them. Whatever was unfolding needed to happen without my interference. 3 days after the contract suspension, Leona Hayes called again. "Dr. Meredith, we'd like you to come in for a formal interview regarding Nature Growth's formulation process." "Am I under investigation?" I asked carefully. "No," she replied. "You're being consulted as the original developer. We need your expertise." The following day, I sat in a sterile government office, explaining my original research to a panel of scientists and regulators. I described the organic enzyme processes, the natural mineral stabilizers, the mycorrhizal components that made the formula both effective and environmentally sound. "And when did the formula change?" a stern-faced regulator asked. "I noticed alterations approximately 6 months ago," I explained. "When I raised concerns internally, I was gradually isolated and eventually terminated." "On what grounds?" "Corporate espionage. I was accused of sending proprietary information to competitors." The panel exchanged glances. "Did you?" "No," I said firmly. "But someone used my email account to send something. I was never shown exactly what was sent." They nodded, making notes. The questioning continued for hours, exhaustive and detailed. When I finally emerged, the sun was setting. My phone buzzed with notifications. Nature Growth had released a statement. "We are cooperating fully with regulatory inquiries regarding our agricultural products. We maintain our commitment to quality and compliance." Corporate doublespeak that said nothing. A week passed. Then, too, the investigation continued behind closed doors. I focused on my parents' farm, expanding the test plot, documenting results. The eastern field was showing remarkable improvement, proof that my original formula worked perfectly without synthetic shortcuts. Then came the day that changed everything. I was harvesting early tomatoes from my mother's garden when Leona Hayes called again. "Dr. Meredith, the investigation has concluded. I thought you should hear the results before the public announcement." My heart raced. "What did you find?" "Systematic substitution of synthetic compounds for organic components, falsified testing data, and deliberate misrepresentation to government agencies." Her voice turned grimmer. "The environmental impact assessment shows potential groundwater contamination in test regions. Criminal charges are being filed against several executives, including Rain Blackwood." I sat down hard on the garden bench. Criminal charges? Fraud, environmental violations, conspiracy. The evidence is overwhelming. "What evidence?" I asked, genuinely curious. Even I hadn't managed to compile definitive proof before my termination. "That's actually why I'm calling. The comparison testing revealed something unusual. The verification samples, the ones earmarked for government testing, contained a marker compound not present in actual production batches. When exposed to our extended protocol conditions, It produced a distinctive crystalline pattern that made the substitutions immediately obvious. It was almost as if, she paused, as if someone wanted us to find the discrepancy, she finished. A moment of silence stretched between us. The Board of Nature Growth has requested a meeting with you, Leona continued. They're in crisis mode. The government contract is permanently canceled, their stock has collapsed, and they're facing class action lawsuits from shareholders. They specifically asked for you. Why would they want to see me? I asked, though I already knew. They need the original formula, the one that actually works without shortcuts, the one you developed. 3 days later, I walked into Nature Growth headquarters for the first time since my humiliating exit. The atmosphere had transformed. Gone was the confident bustle of a successful biotech company. Instead, employees moved quickly with downcast eyes. Security guards looked nervous rather than intimidating. The receptionist, the same woman who had watched me leave with my cardboard box of belongings, now stood to greet me. Dr. Meredith, they're waiting for you in the conference room. The board of directors, 8 people I'd rarely interacted with during my years at the company, sat around the table looking haggard. Notably absent was Rain. Dr. Meredith, the chairman began, thank you for coming. We find ourselves in an unprecedented situation. I said nothing, waiting. The actions taken by former CEO Blackwood were not authorized by this board. We had no knowledge of the formula alterations or the circumstances of your departure. I raised an eyebrow. You had no oversight of a $50 million government contract? Several members shifted uncomfortably. We trusted our executive team. Another board member offered weakly. Clearly that trust was misplaced. What do you want from me? I asked directly. We understand you continued your research independently, that you have a functional, truly organic formulation that meets or exceeds the performance metrics promised to clients. I nodded once. We want to license that formulation. Nature Growth needs to rebuild its reputation, and your work could be the foundation of that rebuilding. License, I repeated. No, that's not going to happen. Alarm flashed across their faces. We're prepared to offer substantial compensation. I don't want compensation, I interrupted. I want ownership. The room fell silent. Explain, the chairman finally said. I'll provide my formula and return as chief scientific officer, but only if we restructure the company entirely. I want 30% ownership. I want a board seat. And I want to establish a profit-sharing program with the small farms that use our products. That's unprecedented, one board member sputtered. So is having your entire executive team facing criminal charges, I countered. Your choice is simple. Truly rebuild with me, or watch everything collapse without me. 3 weeks of negotiations followed. In the end, I got what I wanted. Not because I was a brilliant negotiator, but because they had no alternatives. The agricultural community knew I was the mind behind the original breakthrough. Without me, Nature Growth was finished. 6 months later, I stood in a field watching farmers gather for our demonstration day. The company, renamed Restoration Botanicals, was launching its first product line under my leadership. The formulation was completely organic, extensively tested, and performed exactly as promised. Wyatt approached, now leading our field testing division. The results from the Nebraska trials are excellent. 37% yield increase in drought conditions. Good, I said, watching a farmer run soil through his fingers, explaining to his daughter how the microorganisms worked. Have we finalized the small farm subsidy program? Ready to launch next month. The board approved the full funding. I nodded, satisfaction warming me from within. What I'd built was better than revenge. It was redemption. Later that evening, as I prepared for a presentation to agricultural extension agents, a news alert popped up on my phone. Former Nature Growth CEO, sentenced in fraud case. The article detailed Rain's 5-year prison sentence and lifetime ban from executive positions in publicly traded companies. The judge had been particularly harsh given the environmental implications of her actions. Standing alone in my office, the same corner office Rain once occupied, I finally allowed myself to remember the one piece of the story I had never shared with anyone. Not with the investigators, not with the board, not even with Wyatt. 1 week after my public firing, When Rain's face turned pale as government agents in hazard suits entered our production facility, she never knew what I'd actually sent in that leaked email. In my final hours clearing my desk, with security watching my every move, I'd meticulously swapped the samples earmarked for the government's verification testing. I replaced them with my alternative organic formula that contained a special twist, a molecular marker that would remain dormant under standard testing but would produce a distinctive pattern under the specific conditions of the government's extended verification protocol. This marker would reveal the presence of synthetic compounds in the actual production samples, when the government inevitably compared the verification samples to randomly selected production batches. The email Rain accused me of sending to competitors, it was actually sent by her son, or someone acting on her orders, from my account, but they never bothered to check what was attached. They assumed it contained our proprietary formula, when in reality, I'd prepared for this possibility. The attachment contained harmless, publicly available research papers with hidden metadata that would lead astute investigators to question specific aspects of the testing protocol. It was insurance I'd created but never expected to use. My true revenge wasn't in destruction. It was in building something better from the ashes of what Rain had tried to burn. Where she had sought shortcuts for profit, I created sustainable solutions. Where she had fostered fear, I built collaboration. The company that once cast me out now thrived under my guidance, helping the very farmers she would have endangered. Sometimes the most satisfying revenge isn't watching your enemy fall, it's watching your vision rise. If you've ever faced injustice or betrayal in your professional life, I hope this story reminds you that your knowledge and integrity can't be taken from you. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to rebuild after a professional setback? And if you found this story meaningful, please like and subscribe for more stories of resilience and redemption in unexpected places. The silence was deafening as I stood in the middle of our laboratory, frozen in place while my colleagues avoided eye contact. The air felt thick with the scent of betrayal and expensive jasmine extract. While you were off playing with flowers in Tokyo, the company needed someone reliable, Terrence announced, his voice carrying across the lab. Phoebe has graciously accepted the head perfumer position. 6 months of intensive training under Master Hanako Yamamoto, one of the last practitioners of ancient Japanese aromatic techniques, rendered meaningless in a single sentence. 7 years of research, overnight shifts, and innovative formulations, all dismissed as playing with flowers. Phoebe stood beside Terrence, wearing a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary. She'd been with the company for exactly 14 weeks. Her previous experience consisted of a basic cosmetics certification and being Terrence's brother's daughter. The board unanimously approved my decision, Terrence continued, though I knew the board meant him and his 2 golf buddies. Phoebe has shown remarkable aptitude. Her signature scent will headline our collection at the International Fragrance Exhibition next month. I felt 20 pairs of eyes on me, waiting for my reaction. The promotion wasn't just a title. It was the culmination of a secret project our founder Ingrid had entrusted to me before her retirement. A revolutionary approach to fragrance that could transform our boutique house into a global phenomenon. Thanks to your absence, family comes first around here, Terrence added, arms crossed, a smirk playing on his thin lips. I smiled back, not the reaction he expected. What's so amusing? He demanded, nostrils flaring. Nothing, I replied softly, just thinking about the promotion you gave away. His eyes narrowed slightly. The position needed to be filled immediately. Phoebe graciously decided to stay in town rather than take that opportunity in Milan. My gaze shifted to Phoebe, who was examining her manicure. Milan had never shown interest in her. I knew, because I had contacts throughout the industry who would have mentioned such an offer. I look forward to seeing your creation, Phoebe, I said. Master Yamamoto always emphasized that balance is everything in fragrance. Those old techniques are outdated, she replied with a dismissive wave. Modern perfumery is about impact, not balance. That single statement confirmed everything. She had no idea what she was doing. Terrence clapped his hands. Excellent. Veda, you'll be assisting Phoebe with the final preparations for the exhibition. Your experience will be valuable, even if you weren't right for the leadership role. The laboratory slowly returned to work as Terrence led Phoebe to what should have been my office. As they walked away, I overheard him say, "Don't worry about Veda. She's all theory, no practical sense." My colleague Dimitri approached cautiously. "I'm sorry, Veda. Everyone knows you deserve that position." "It's fine," I replied, removing my lab coat. "Excuse me a moment." I walked to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and pressed my forehead against the cool metal door. 7 years of dedication, countless weekends sacrificed. The careful building of relationships with suppliers to source the rarest ingredients. The meticulous documentation of every experiment. The gentle guidance of junior team members. All of it, handed to Phoebe because her last name matched Terrence's family tree. I took 3 deep breaths, detecting the subtle notes of cleaning solution, hand soap, and fear. My fear. Not of failure, but of what I might do next. Because what Terrence didn't understand was that the promotion he'd given away wasn't just any position. What Phoebe didn't realize was that the formulations she was now in charge of weren't just pleasant scents. What neither of them knew was that, in Tokyo, I hadn't just learned techniques, I'd uncovered secrets. Secrets about how certain molecular combinations could influence human perception and behavior. Secrets that, in the wrong hands, could lead to disaster. And Phoebe's hands were very wrong indeed. I splashed water on my face and stared at my reflection. The woman looking back had changed. 6 months in Tokyo had transformed me. I was no longer just a talented perfumer. I was something else entirely. I straightened my shoulders and dried my hands. As I reached for the door, I made my decision. Terrence had no idea what he'd just done. Neither did Phoebe, but they were about to find out. If this story has captured your attention, please consider giving it a like and subscribing for more. Your support helps me continue crafting these tales of determination and justice. Let me know in the comments if you've ever had something you worked hard for taken away unfairly. I read every comment and would love to hear your experiences. My name is Veda Chandler, and until 6 months ago, I was the deputy perfumer at Alchemy Essentials, a boutique fragrance house known for its innovative, natural scents. I've always had what my grandmother called a witch's nose, able to identify and separate individual scents from the most complex bouquets. When other children were drawing with crayons, I was categorizing the distinct waxy notes of each color. I joined Alchemy 7 years ago with a biochemistry degree and a passion for transforming molecules into emotions. While other perfumers created pleasant fragrances, I created experiences, scents that transported you to specific memories or feelings. This gift caught the attention of Ingrid Northwood, our founder and a legend in the fragrance world. Ingrid became my mentor, recognizing something in me that others missed. She wasn't interested in commercial success alone. She believed fragrances could do more than smell nice. They could heal, inspire, and transform. 3 years into my tenure, Ingrid shared a secret with me. "Veda," she said, her voice soft in her private lab. Throughout history, certain master perfumers discovered that specific molecular combinations could influence human perception and behavior. Not in a mystical way, but through neurological pathways. The ancient temples used these techniques in their ceremonies. She showed me delicate scrolls and worn journals, her collection of fragrance history that few had ever seen. Modern science is only beginning to understand what ancient masters knew intuitively, she continued. Certain scent molecules can trigger specific responses in the brain, feelings of trust, alertness, calm, or even subtle anxiety. Over the next 4 years, Ingrid and I worked quietly on what she called the Harmony Project, a revolutionary approach to fragrance that went beyond pleasant smells to create beneficial sensory experiences. We conducted careful research, documenting every experiment and discovery. As Ingrid prepared for retirement, she arranged for me to train with Master Hanako Yamamoto in Tokyo, one of the last practitioners of these ancient techniques. "This knowledge is powerful," Ingrid warned before I left. "It must be used with respect and precision. One molecule out of balance can transform a beneficial scent into something quite different." Terrence had been appointed interim CEO after Ingrid's retirement. He was a marketing executive who knew nothing about fragrance creation but plenty about profit margins. He reluctantly approved my Tokyo training but made it clear he considered it an unnecessary expense. In Tokyo, Master Hanako taught me that the most powerful fragrances worked through subtle influence, not overwhelming force. The Western approach is often too direct, she explained as we worked. They create scents that shout. We create scents that whisper directly to the brain. I learned techniques for formulating molecules that could induce specific states of mind, clarifying focus, enhancing empathy, alleviating anxiety. But I also learned the dangers of imbalance, how the same molecular structures, when improperly formulated, could induce opposite effects. Balance is everything, Master Hanako emphasized daily. Respect the power you hold. When I returned from Tokyo last week, I discovered chaos at Alchemy. Terrence had accelerated the timeline for our signature collection launch to coincide with the International Fragrance Exhibition, FS, just 4 weeks away. And now, Phoebe, with her 14 weeks of experience, was in charge of the entire project. After the announcement of Phoebe's promotion, Dimitri filled me in on what had happened during my absence. She changes formulations without testing, he whispered as we worked in the lab. She doubles concentrations because she thinks scents should be stronger. She ignores safety protocols because they're too slow. Has anyone seen her actual work? I asked. Terrence won't allow criticism, Dimitri replied. Last week, Alexis suggested additional testing for Phoebe's signature scent, and Terrence removed her from the exhibition team. That evening, I stayed late, ostensibly to catch up on missed work. Once everyone had left, I carefully examined Phoebe's formulation notebooks. What I found terrified me. Phoebe had taken our delicate, balanced formulations and brutalized them. She'd increased potent compounds to dangerous levels, mixed incompatible molecules, and ignored crucial stabilizing agents. Her signature scent, the one Terrence planned to feature prominently at the exhibition, contained exactly the combinations Master Hanako had warned against. In a controlled environment like our lab, the problems weren't obvious. But under exhibition conditions, warm rooms, hundreds of people, changing humidity, these imbalances could trigger reactions ranging from headaches to acute anxiety. I sat back, stunned by the potential disaster looming. Buyers, critics, and industry leaders would all be exposed to these unstable compounds. The reputation Ingrid had built over decades could be destroyed in an evening. I had 3 options. Tell Terrence, who wouldn't listen, quit in protest, which wouldn't help anyone, or find another way. The next morning, Phoebe summoned me to her new office, my intended office. Terrence says you should assist me, she said without looking up from her phone. I need you to prepare sample vials of my signature scent for the exhibition preview. Of course, I replied. May I review your final formulation first? Sometimes certain compounds require special handling for events. She shrugged and pushed a notebook toward me. Whatever. Just make sure it smells exactly like my prototype. Terrence says this scent will define the company's future. On that point, at least, we agreed. Over the next 3 weeks, I became Phoebe's shadow. I offered suggestions that she mostly ignored. I pointed out potential issues that she dismissed. I recommended standard testing that she called paranoid. But I also gained her trust by praising her creativity and supporting her in front of Terrence. Gradually, she began allowing me more involvement in the final preparations, particularly for her signature scent, which she'd named Dominance. An appropriate name, though not in the way she intended. 2 days before the exhibition, disaster struck. During a final formulation session, Phoebe accidentally knocked over a bottle of essential compound, losing half our prepared stock of her signature scent. What am I going to do? She panicked, looking at the spreading liquid on the floor. The exhibition is in 2 days. We need at least 50 sample vials. I can help, I offered calmly. I've memorized your formulation. If you handle the other preparations, I can recreate this batch overnight. Relief washed over her face. You'd do that, even after. We're on the same team, I assured her. The company's success is what matters. She left me alone in the lab with full access to all ingredients and her complete trust. That night, I worked methodically, carefully adjusting the formulation of Dominance. I didn't sabotage it, not exactly. I simply restored balance to certain molecules while subtly modifying others. The changes would be undetectable in the lab environment but would reveal themselves under specific conditions. Conditions exactly like those at a crowded exhibition hall. As dawn broke, I sealed the last sample vial and prepared detailed notes on proper handling of the fragrance. Phoebe would never read them, but they would provide important documentation later. When she arrived that morning, I presented her with the completed work. "You're a lifesaver," she exclaimed, examining a vial. "It smells perfect. Just doing my job," I replied. "Remember, fragrance is all about balance," she laughed. "You and your balance. This is going to blow everyone away." Again, we agreed, though for entirely different reasons. The day of the International Fragrance Exhibition arrived. The Grand Hall was transformed into a sensory wonderland, with booths from every major fragrance house worldwide. Alchemy's display was prominently positioned near the entrance. Terrence had paid extra for the prime location. Our booth featured elegant glass displays of 5 fragrances, with dominance positioned center stage. The marketing materials praised it as a revolutionary approach to modern fragrance and the future of alchemy essentials. Terrence arrived in an expensive suit, Phoebe beside him in a designer dress. They both ignored me as I quietly arranged the sample vials and prepared the diffusers. "The buyers from Nordica Luxury Group are coming at 7, Terrence instructed Phoebe. "Their order alone could double our annual revenue. Make sure they get the full experience of your creation." As industry elites began filling the hall, the temperature rose steadily. Humidity increased with each additional body. Exactly the conditions needed for what was about to happen. Phoebe began enthusiastically spraying her signature scent for anyone who approached our booth. For the first hour, everything seemed fine. The scent was pleasant enough in small doses and initial exposure. But as the molecules dispersed throughout the warm, humid environment, they began to transform, just as Master Hanako had taught me they would. The first sign that something was wrong came from a renowned critic who had been hovering near our booth for several minutes. She wrinkled her nose and stepped back, consulting her notes with a confused expression. "Is there something else being diffused nearby?" she asked, looking around. "I'm getting an unusual undertone." Phoebe laughed nervously. "That's just the complexity of my creation. Many layers reveal themselves over time." The critic nodded uncertainly and moved to a neighboring booth. Within 30 minutes, a pattern emerged. People would approach our display with interest, spend a few moments sampling the fragrances, then inexplicably drift away with vague excuses. Some rubbed their temples, others loosened their collars. A respected buyer from Paris circled back after leaving our area. "There's something distinctive about this scent," she said, struggling to find the right words. "It reminds me of something, but I can't place it." What she couldn't articulate was that the scent was triggering a subtle neurological response, a barely perceptible feeling of unease. Not enough to recognize consciously, but sufficient to make people instinctively want to distance themselves. Phoebe, growing increasingly desperate as potential buyers kept drifting away, began spraying more of her signature scent into the air. This only intensified the effect. "I don't understand," she whispered to Terrence. "Everyone loved it in the office tests." Terrence's confident smile had faltered. The Nordica representatives were due in 20 minutes, and our booth was noticeably less crowded than our competitors. "Use the diffusers," he commanded. "Maybe people just need more exposure." I watched silently as Phoebe activated the electronic diffusers, releasing a steady stream of dominance into our area. The molecular concentration in the air increased, pushing the effect from subtle unease to something more pronounced. A jewelry designer from the adjacent booth approached Terrence. "I don't mean to intrude, but is there something wrong with your fragrance? My clients are asking if there's a problem with the ventilation in this section." Terrence glared at her. "Absolutely not. This is a revolutionary scent created by our head perfumer." "Well, it's making people uncomfortable," she persisted. "Several have mentioned feeling anxious or getting headaches." As if to confirm her point, a journalist nearby suddenly pressed his hand to his forehead and quickly walked toward the exit. Panic flashed across Terrence's face. He turned to Phoebe. "What's happening?" "I don't know," she hissed. "It smelled perfect in the lab." The exhibition director was now approaching our booth, accompanied by two concerned-looking staff members. In the background, I noticed several attendees pointing in our direction while speaking to security personnel. Mr. Harrison, the director addressed Terrence formally, we've received multiple complaints about irritation coming from your display area. If there's a problem with your samples, there is no problem, Terrence insisted, his voice rising. This is sabotage from our competitors. The director looked skeptical. Nevertheless, if the complaints continue, we'll need to shut down your booth for safety reasons. As he walked away, Terrence rounded on his staff. Find out what's happening, now. Dmitri cautiously approached with a testing strip. The molecular structure seems to be changing in this environment. The base notes are intensifying inappropriately. That's impossible, Phoebe snapped. I followed all the standard protocols. This was my moment. I stepped forward. May I? Without waiting for permission, I took the testing strip from Dmitri and examined it carefully. The heat and humidity are destabilizing certain molecules in the formulation. This combination, I pointed to a specific compound in Phoebe's notes, becomes volatile under these conditions. How would you know that? Phoebe demanded. It's one of the primary principles taught in Tokyo, I replied calmly. Master Yamamoto emphasized that certain molecular combinations must be balanced with stabilizing agents, especially for public exhibitions where environmental factors can't be controlled. The color drained from Phoebe's face as understanding dawned. She hadn't just created a bad fragrance, she had created an actively problematic one, and now hundreds of industry professionals were experiencing the results. Terrence looked between us, desperation evident in his eyes. The Nordica representatives had just entered the hall. Can you fix it? He asked me, his earlier smugness entirely gone. I hesitated, allowing the moment to stretch. Possibly. I would need to introduce a counteracting agent to neutralize the problematic compounds. Do it, he ordered. Whatever you need. I'll need access to the reserve ingredients in our supply case, I said. An authorization from the exhibition director to diffuse a neutralizing agent throughout this section. Terrence immediately pulled out his phone to call the director while Phoebe watched helplessly, her career crumbling before her eyes. I retrieved my personal case from beneath our display table, a special kit I had prepared specifically for this scenario. Inside were several vials of precisely formulated scents, each labeled with Japanese characters. The exhibition director arrived quickly, alarmed by the growing situation. What exactly is happening here? He demanded. I explained in technical terms how certain molecular combinations could become unstable under specific environmental conditions. I described the subtle neurological effects such compounds could trigger and emphasized that while uncomfortable, they weren't dangerous. I've prepared a neutralizing agent, I concluded, holding up a crystal vial containing an amber liquid. It will stabilize the existing compounds and eliminate the negative effects. The director, a former chemist himself, nodded in understanding. How quickly will it work? Almost immediately, I assured him. The molecules are designed to bind with and transform the problematic compounds. With his authorization, I uncapped the vial and carefully added its contents to the exhibition hall's central diffusion system. Within minutes, the subtle atmosphere of anxiety began to dissipate. People who had been avoiding our section gradually returned, their expressions relaxing. What they were experiencing now was the true art I had learned in Tokyo, a perfectly balanced composition that created a sense of mental clarity and emotional calm. Not overpowering, not manipulative, but gently supportive of the natural human state. The Nordica representatives, who had been waiting cautiously at the periphery, finally approached our booth. What exactly happened here? Their lead buyer asked Terrence. Before he could fabricate an explanation, I stepped forward. A valuable lesson in the importance of proper training and respect for ancient techniques. The original formulation was unbalanced, but now you're experiencing what our founder always envisioned, fragrances that enhance rather than overwhelm. I explained the principles behind what they were now experiencing, how certain molecules could support cognitive clarity and emotional balance when properly formulated. This is remarkable, the buyer said, closing her eyes to better experience the scent. It's subtle, yet effective. I feel more focused, more present. That's exactly the intention, I replied. Our founder believed fragrance should be a supportive presence, not an aggressive one. For the next hour, I became the de facto representative of alchemy essentials. Critics, buyers, and even competitors gathered to hear about the techniques I had learned in Tokyo. I shared just enough to fascinate without revealing the carefully guarded secrets of Master Hanako's teaching. Terence stood to the side, watching as industry leaders who had previously ignored him now engaged enthusiastically with me. Phoebe had disappeared entirely, too humiliated to face the crowd. The Nordica representatives, impressed by both the recovered situation and my knowledge, requested a private meeting for the following morning. We're interested in an exclusive arrangement, their lead buyer whispered to me. Not with just anyone at Alchemy, but specifically with you. As the exhibition drew to a close, the director approached with several board members from the International Fragrance Association. That was quite a demonstration, he said. Intentional or not, you've given us all a powerful lesson in respect for fragrance chemistry. Some lessons need to be experienced to be truly understood, I replied. After the attendees had departed, I found Terence sitting alone in our disheveled booth, tie loosened and expression grim. The board chairman called, he said without looking up. There's an emergency meeting tomorrow morning. I assumed there would be, I replied, packing my materials. You knew this would happen, he said. It wasn't a question. I knew an unbalanced formulation would become problematic under exhibition conditions. Yes, any properly trained perfumer would have known that. You could have prevented it. You could have corrected Phoebe's work beforehand. I paused, meeting his gaze directly. The way you prevented a qualified professional from receiving the position she earned? The way you corrected your mistake of appointing an unqualified family member to a critical role? He had no response. See you at the board meeting, I said, walking away. That night, I received 3 calls. One from Master Hanako checking on the demonstration, one from Ingrid who had heard about the exhibition from her industry contacts, and one from the board chairman requesting all my documentation on the Harmony project. I slept peacefully for the first time since returning from Tokyo. The board meeting began at 8 the following morning. I arrived early with a comprehensive presentation, my training certificates from Tokyo, detailed notes on the Harmony project spanning 7 years, correspondence with Ingrid confirming her intentions for my role upon return, and complete documentation of the molecular issues with Phoebe's formulations. Terence arrived minutes before the meeting began, Phoebe notably absent, the boardroom filled with senior executives and major shareholders, many of whom I'd never met. The chairman called the meeting to order with a grave expression. Yesterday's incident at the International Fragrance Exhibition has created significant concern, he began. Our company was publicly embarrassed, and preliminary reports suggest negligence in our quality control processes. Terence immediately launched into a defense, blaming unusual environmental conditions and suggesting that competitors might have interfered with our display. The chairman let him finish, then turned to me. Ms. Chandler, would you please explain exactly what happened yesterday from a technical perspective? For the next 30 minutes, I walked the board through the science of molecular stability in fragrance compounds. I explained how certain combinations required specific balancing agents, particularly in uncontrolled environments. I detailed the neurological pathways through which fragrances influenced perception and behavior. I never directly accused Phoebe or Terence of incompetence. I didn't need to. The technical evidence spoke for itself. When I finished, the chairman nodded thoughtfully. And the recovery? The neutralizing agent you used was quite effective, according to multiple reports. That was an application of the techniques I studied in Tokyo, I explained. Master Hanako's teachings emphasize harmony and balance, principles our founder also valued deeply. The chairman turned to Terence. Did you review Ms. Chandler's training reports from Tokyo before making staffing decisions? Terence shifted uncomfortably. Those reports weren't relevant to operational needs. The company required immediate leadership in the perfumer position. Interesting, the chairman replied, because we have here a letter from Ingrid Northwood, dated before her retirement, explicitly stating that the Tokyo training was the final preparation for Ms. Chandler to assume the head perfumer role upon her return. He held up a document I had never seen. Furthermore, we have confirmation that Nordica Luxury Group has offered an exclusive contract with Alchemy Essentials, contingent specifically on Ms. Chandler leading the fragrance development team. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. The board has reached a decision, the chairman continued. Effective immediately, Veda Chandler will assume the position of head perfumer and creative director for Alchemy Essentials, with full authority over all fragrance development. He turned to Terrence. Mr. Harrison will transition to regional sales director, focusing on our existing product lines in secondary markets. Terrence's face flushed dark red. This is outrageous. One incident doesn't. This isn't about one incident, the chairman interrupted. This is about respecting the vision of our founder and recognizing exceptional talent. The board vote was unanimous. He stood, effectively ending the discussion. Ms. Chandler, please prepare a complete recovery plan by the end of the week. The rest of you, thank you for your time. As the board members filed out, many stopped to congratulate me. Terrence remained seated, staring at the table as his career imploded around him. When we were alone, he finally looked up. You planned this from the beginning. You let Phoebe fail spectacularly to prove a point. No, I corrected him. I simply allowed natural consequences to unfold. Phoebe was never qualified for the position, something you knew but ignored. I didn't sabotage her work. I just didn't prevent the inevitable failure her inexperience would cause. I gathered my materials. The difference between us, Terrence, is that I understand the power of balance in molecules, in business relationships, in justice. He glared at me. So this was your revenge? Humiliating me and ruining my niece's career? I smiled slightly. This wasn't revenge. This was restoration. There's an important distinction. As I walked toward the door, I paused. Oh, and Terrence? Master Hanako taught me that the true measure of power isn't in what you take, but in what you create. I've just created a future for alchemy that honors its past, while embracing innovation. What have you created lately, besides nepotism? I didn't wait for his response. There was too much work to do. A revolutionary fragrance line to develop, ancient techniques to honor, and a legacy to build. 3 months later, our Harmony collection debuted to international acclaim. The carefully balanced formulations created subtle but profound experiences for wearers. Clarity, confidence, tranquility. Industry publications praised the revolutionary approach that transforms fragrance from accessory to essential companion. Terrence eventually left for a position at a budget cosmetics brand. Phoebe, humbled by the experience, enrolled in a proper perfumery school in Grasse, where she would spend years learning the foundations she had arrogantly dismissed. And me? I received a handwritten note from Master Hanako that simply read, "Balance achieved." The most satisfying revenge isn't destruction, but reconstruction. Not in taking something away, but in creating something better. Not in burning bridges, but in building new paths that lead exactly where you were always meant to go. If you enjoyed this story of justice finally being served, please hit the like button and subscribe for more tales of persistence and triumph. Have you ever had to watch someone unqualified take a position you deserved? Share your experience in the comments. I find that sometimes the sweetest victory comes from simply being patient, while incompetence reveals itself naturally. Your support means everything to storytellers like me.